everybody. As always, thank you for tuning in. This podcast is brought to you by Draft Thunder. Come to us for all your daily fantasy needs.
Welcome to the Draft Thunder podcast. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Ben.
And here we are talking about week 2 of NFL preseason football. So last week, what do you think how we did?
Well, we can't pick a tight end to save our lives. I don't really know why.
It's very unpredictable.
Yeah, it's tough.
It was almost like the Titans we picked were too good for some reason.
Yeah, it's all right. As the teams start to cut down, you'll see a lot more precise, and we'll understand who's playing more and who's not going to see the field as much. It's tough when these teams have, like we said last week, 11 wide receivers, and you're choosing 3 to 4 of them, and it was such a big slate that you had countless options to choose from. There was no salary cap to worry about. So I think we brought you guys some good picks. It may not have worked out perfectly, but it's a work in progress. Everyone's, it's preseason for everybody, so we're just warming up here.
Yeah, there's still 3 more weeks preseason. I think these next 2 weeks will be better. And then the 4th week, we're going to try our best. I'm not going to lie to you, but the 4th week is a mystery because that's when nobody plays. That's when there's a lot of the same picks that you saw in the first game. So we'll just try and bring you what we can. We're excited for week 1 of the regular season. That's where we can actually analyze things and give you the best plays that we can. And that's where we really be making a lot of money. But again, up until then, I advise to stick to cash games, try and build your bankroll, and go from there. So, we're going to start out this week by talking about quarterbacks. And this week, I like Brian Hoyer again.
Back on the Hoyer train.
Yes. I know that he did not have the greatest start. I think the entire first half, he went something around 3 for 8. Or that's at least what I saw when I was at the Ravens game on the big boards. But then he kept playing into the second half, and then he got eventually 144 yards. He didn't get a touchdown, but I love seeing this volume and the amount of playing time from him. I did read that Tom Brady's going to play 1 or 2 drives, but even with that, Brian Hoyer is still probably locked in to play 2/3 of the game.
Yeah.
Something crazy like that. So he might not have the talent, and he is scary, like we said last week. But I think he's a safe pick with the amount of volume that he's going to be getting. And he's still going to be going against the second and third string defenses. So he really has a good floor this week.
Yeah, definitely. And Hoyer's going to be a good option because even with Brady playing a couple of drives, they're not going to put him in harm's way. He's going to be throwing quick outs. He's going to be throwing slants. No deep dropbacks. It's just going to be for him to get the game flow down. So after that, you're going to see Hoyer for a while. And he didn't score a touchdown, and I know he wasn't as accurate last week. But at the end of the day, the Patriots need someone that is going to be a good, viable backup option for them in case Brady gets hurt. We saw it in 2011 or 2009. Whenever Brady tore his ACL, we saw Matt Castle come in. And they still went 11-5. I know they missed the playoffs at 11-5. But they like having the assurance that they have someone that can win them games behind Tom Brady. So they're going to want to see Hoyer succeed here and put him in the best chance possible and let him show what he has. Even if it's not much, he's going to see the most time this week, we think. So Hoyer's still going to be a really viable option.
Yeah. And who do you like at quarterback this week?
So a little bit risky here, but I do like Deshaun Kaiser. I know they have Hundley, and then there's a 4th guy. We're not seeing Rodgers. Let's be honest here.
No.
They're not going to put him in any harm's way. So I would imagine Hundley and Kaiser is going to split some things, split most of the game. And I think Kaiser's just going to be in a good position here. I mean, he's mobile, so you're going to get a little bit more out of the rushing. Hopefully, maybe he'll even run in for a touchdown, or maybe he'll connect on a couple of touchdowns through the air. So I really like Kaiser, and he'll be going up against some of the bad defenders for the Steelers. Their first-team defense isn't even that good anymore. So yeah, I think he's going to be in a good spot here.
Yeah.
And, hopefully those rookie wide receivers, like we said last week, start to step up. And we saw a couple of them do. And we'll talk about that when we get to the wide receivers.
Yeah, I know if I'm Kaiser, being a starter at one point, I know for the Browns, and maybe he doesn't have that confidence as a starter, but coming in 3rd string in the preseason, or 2nd string, whatever it's going to be with Rodgers not playing, but coming in and playing against those bad players, being a starter before, he probably has confidence, and he should be able to produce a lot. Another quarterback that I'm looking at, which is probably the only other quarterback on the slate, because it's only 3 games, it's kind of short, and we're trying to hone in on the best players, I would say Mason Rudolph. is a good one to look at. So it is said that they will not be playing their veteran players, the Steelers, for the most part. They said select veteran players, but that includes Ben Roethlisberger, and I'm assuming Antonio Brown with that injury. He was limited off field.
Bell.
He's definitely not. Yeah, Bell's not playing.
Juju might see a little bit, but
yeah, but also he's questionable. So there's a lot to really think about. But Mason Rudolph will get an extended look this game, so I'm thinking that he gets very similar efficiency to what he got last game. And last game he went 7 for 12 for 101 yards. That was without a touchdown. I expect him to hopefully get a touchdown this game and get around the same playing time. So really that's what we're looking for. And I think that he's also a good play along with Hoyer this week.
And just a quick note, I'm not necessarily recommending you do this, but all signs are pointing to Sam Darnold starting for the Jets this week. Take that for what you will. Last year they tried to let Hackenberg win the spot by letting him start in week 2, and he crapped the bed. It was actually horrible. So they're doing a very similar thing this year with Darnold. They're trying to see if he's going to win that starting gig right out of the gate. So if he starts off to a hot start, they might let him go for a little bit more extended to see what he has, as opposed to just going back to McCown and Bridgewater. However, they're still going to see their time. So, Darnold might not get the most looks, but he might be really amped up if he does get the starting nod, and he might, provide a lot of value in that first quarter, because I would expect them to at least to show him for the whole first quarter, if not a little bit into the second. So, he might not be getting the most time out of the quarterbacks that we recommended, but if I was getting my first chance at a start and maybe winning a starting job, I know I'd be pretty amped up and wanting to win that position. So, it doesn't always work like that, but if you want to have a little bit of fun, want to watch someone fun, Sam Darnold could be an interesting way to go.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that there are a lot of quarterback options on that team. But also speaking about Hackenberg, the Eagles just picked him up this week. And now something that we have to look at in the Eagles offense is the liability of Sudfeld competing with these other quarterbacks. Now, we looked at him last week because he was a strong option. He had 2 touchdowns, but then also 2 interceptions, like you said. And he had a lot of yards. He had a lot of opportunity. But now with Hackenberg coming into the offense, Nick Foles possibly getting a little bit of playing time this week. He didn't get that last week, and that's why that gate opened up for Sudfeld. So we're going to probably stay away from Sudfeld this week. He still might have a good game, but from a fantasy perspective, we're not considering him. Now moving on to running backs. My guy that I'm really on this week would be Gillislee.
Okay.
So, the reason why I'm on Gillislee this week is because there are a lot of injuries in New England. Now, Jeremy Hill, he had a good preseason first game actually. He was looking really good. But he is questionable this week, and this will also be something that we'll be looking at closer to lock time. So again, stay with us on Twitter, please follow us. Be ready for those updates. But Jeremy Hill might not be playing, along with Sonny Michel and Burkhead probably not playing too. So that gives Gillislee a huge opportunity to basically be him and I think the other backup running back. So we'll be seeing a lot of volume from him. Even if Jeremy Hill does play, he won't be playing as much, and Gillislee will have a lot of opportunities, and he has the experience. So I think that he's a great option this week, and probably my number 1 back. And
yeah, he got 14 carries last week. 43 yards, which isn't really a bad yard per carry, but he just didn't do anything else.
But 14 carries.
14 carries is what we're
awesome.
looking at, yeah.
Yeah. So who did you say your top pick was this week?
So I'm going to go with Samaje Perine. I don't have much to say about his talent. Obviously, the Redskins' running game has been in shambles the past few years, and they thought they fixed it. But they didn't, and Geis tore his ACL, and that is the most Redskins thing to ever happen. So Geis is gone for the year, so someone's got to step up here. And, they still have Fat Rob, Rob Kelly, for those that don't know. He's very fat. So I don't really consider him to be a good running back, nor do I really consider Perine to be a great running back. But he's better than Rob Kelly, and one of them's going to have to take the starting job. I don't think Byron Maxwell is going to be the guy that they're going to look at to win that starting job, or Capri Bibbs for that matter. So I'm looking at Perine to get an extended look here, even running with the ones, leaking into the twos. Him and Rob will be splitting that time.
Yeah, and it is said that Chris Thompson will not suit up Thursday.
And that's right, Thompson is not playing. So, and they don't want Thompson to be a bell cow anyway. They've said that even when they got Geis, they said, everyone was like, oh, Thompson had an amazing year last year, but the Redskins came out and said, we don't want to change Chris Thompson's role. We want him to be the third down back. Yeah. So there's an opportunity here. I think Perine, he still got 7 carries last week, 31 yards. That's over 4 yards per carry. It's actually not bad at all. So I'm going to look at Perine extensively here. Hopefully he falls into the end zone. Hopefully they don't let Rob Kelly vulture anything. So I'm looking at Perine as my top guy to try to take over for Geis.
Yeah, definitely. And then the next guy that I'm looking at about 2 more running backs here. And I'm thinking this week my strategy is actually going to be running 2 running backs and then another running back in the flex because I feel really good about my 3 running backs and maybe even Perine. So I'm looking at Matt Jones this week. I know I talked about him a little bit last week and he was questionable and then he ended up not playing at all. But this week he's healthy. He's been practicing all week. And everyone else is not healthy on the Eagles. So Clement's not playing. Humphrey's not playing. And then Josh Adams isn't playing either. So there's a lot of opportunity for Matt Jones to step up as that running back. He has the experience. And I used to like him on the Redskins. I know that their running game is awful, but I thought that he was a good power back. And with J.J. being that solidified back, he's not going to be seeing any time. I saw he was questionable too, so if he's got an injury, they're not going to play him. They're going to definitely try and save him for the regular season. So Matt Jones should see a lot of volume this game. The last guy that I'm looking at is Trenton Cannon on the Jets. So we saw him last week behind Bilal Powell and Isaiah Crowell. He was actually getting early looks with that offense, and I remember that drive that the Jets scored their first touchdown and Crowell scored, and he got concussion on that play. And that gave Cannon the opportunity to come in and see some more workload. Now, going into this week, Isaiah Crowell has a concussion, so he will not be playing. He'll be the number 2 behind Bilal Powell, and Bilal Powell will see some early looks, but I think that Cannon's going to get mixed in with that, and then he's going to go through the game into probably the late second quarter or even into the third quarter. I don't really know what to expect if they want to put in their later guys, but I know that he's been doing most of his work with the second team, so he'll get some extensive looks here with the first team along with the second team that we expect out of him. So I expect seeing a lot from him. He rushed 11 times for 40 yards this last game, so that's definitely the double-digit looks that we want.
3 catches too. And, as we're transitioning through the preseason here, we're going to start to see some of the guys that the teams are going to be looking at to actually make their roster as opposed to just filler time. So if they think they have something with Trenton Cannon here, they're going to use him. So, yeah, I like that play. The last guy I'm just going to mention here is going to be Jamaal Williams for the Packers. He's definitely their starter. He's going to, especially with Ty, being their third down back, and Aaron Jones, they said, or is being suspended for the first 2 games, and he's hurt right now. So Jamaal Williams is definitely going to be their starting running back, or at least their early down running back to start the season. But there's not a ton of running backs that they have. I know Bonin scored last week, and we actually talked about him a little bit on the pod.
Didn't play him.
Didn't play. I played him in one of my lines.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So, but I think Jamaal Williams, he got 5 carries last week, and then ended up scoring on a reception. So I think we can probably pencil him in for. I would actually envision maybe 8 to 10 carries this week. Play 2, 3, 4 drives. Probably the first quarter. And just to get his legs under him, things of that nature. So I would expect him, if he can get you 60 yards, maybe a couple catches, and fall in the end zone, that's pretty much what we're looking for here. We're looking for the 10-point floor, and he should definitely see his time. So he's going to be one of the only starters that we recommend. But I think just the way it works out, they're going to want to use him a little bit this week and make sure that he's ready to go for the regular season.
Yeah, I like that play. And when we move on to receivers right now, I'm also going to look at a starting receiver for the Packers as Devontae Adams. And in the first preseason game, Adams did play 1 drive, but on that 1 drive, he got 2 catches for 57 yards. And I love seeing that from him. And this game, he's only going to get more drives. Like Williams, he's probably going to get 3 or 4 drives. Maybe play the first quarter, but I don't see it happening. But even with those 3 or 4 drives, I can almost say like my projection for him would be 4 catches, and then whatever yards he gets out of that, Adams, he can break out one of those catches for a touchdown. And even with that low volume from him, I know that we've been preaching volume, but with the talent that he has, he's definitely a guy that I want in my lineup. And from this 3-game slate, he's the only really star receiver that I see, because that's going to be playing, because Antonio Brown's not going to be playing. And then all the other teams don't have anything to offer. The Patriots, maybe Chris Hogan, but apparently he had a bad first game too.
Yeah.
He barely dropped like 2 of his balls too. So
the Patriots, I think, only had 3 receivers catch a pass.
yeah, they're a little bit of a mess.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree with Devontae Adams here. For my guy, I'm going to stick with the Packers, and it's gonna be going back to the well here. I'm going to go with Equanimeous St. Brown. Talked to him last week. He ended up having a pretty good day. 6 targets, 4 catches, 61 yards. Got you that 10 points. I know Marquez Valdez-Scantling stole the show. 5 catches for 101 and a touch. But I still think St. Brown is the better talent here. He's a rookie. It's not like we're not going to see him at all. They drafted him. It's going to be one of those guys that they want to see if he's going to make the team. He was a later round draft pick, so he's definitely not like guaranteed a spot or anything like that. And like I said, I trust his talent. I really liked him in college, and he actually played with Kaiser at Notre Dame. So maybe there's a connection there. Maybe they hook up a little bit for a couple passes here. And so he's going to be one of those guys. He's probably not going to get you early points. So don't freak out if you're looking at your lineup and you see a 0. He should see his time later in the game. And like I said, I trust his talent more than I trust Valdez-Scantling and Kumaro.
Valdez-Scantling could also be good this week too. He got a lot last week. He went 5 for 101.
Yeah.
Which is kind of insane. We don't expect that out of him this week either. But he's just also our guy to look at.
Yeah. And the only reason I'm saying that about him, just with St. Brown.
St. Brown has the talent. He's got more talent, in my opinion, too.
Yeah. And I would just expect ownership to go to those guys that people saw last week go off or whatever. And, this is a week-to-week game. We can't just go point chasing. If he goes nuts again, he goes nuts again. I'll take that on the chin. But I'm expecting St. Brown to have a good game here and get you the volume and the floor that you need to create a good cash lineup.
Yeah, I agree with that. 2 of the receivers that I'm looking at are Charles Johnson and James Washington. So Charles Johnson last week went 3 for 5, and he got a touchdown. That actually got called back, but he broke one out, and he's somebody that's fighting on the bubble for a roster spot. And those are going to be the receivers that we see a lot of this week, the back second-string receivers who are fighting along with the second and third team. And he's a guy who got a lot of looks last week, 5 looks. That's really good for a first preseason game. And I definitely saw the talent out of him. And I think the 2 that I saw that he dropped were actually, or they didn't hit him, were red zone targets. Because I saw him getting looked at a lot in the red zone during that game. So he's a guy who will hopefully get us that touchdown this week. He almost got one last week. And if he gets us anywhere from 7 to 10 points, that's an awesome week from him. James Washington is the receiver on the Steelers. He went 2 for 44. And they're looking at him to be the 3rd receiver for their team, behind Antonio Brown and Juju. So they need to see a lot of him. You know how they run their 3 receiver sets. They want to have that 3rd guy like Martavis Bryant. And he could be their guy. He definitely has the talent for it. And he didn't get as many receptions as our guys that we're talking about, obviously 2. But I think that's because they're looking at him to be on their starting roster. And he will definitely see more action this week, probably getting the whole first half, working with the second strings. So I expect a good game out of him also.
Yeah, definitely. Next thing I'm going to talk about here is you're probably going to laugh when you hear the name, just because of his past and his past fantasy relevance, and it's Cordero Patterson. Yeah, exactly. I don't remember, 4 years ago, he was the hot name. Everyone wanted him. He was shooting up draft boards, and then he just didn't do anything. I think maybe he caught like 3 passes all year.
Yeah.
Again, he's had good reports out of Patriots camp this year. take that for what you will. But the concrete evidence we have here is he's one of 3 wide receivers that caught the ball last week for the Patriots. 2 catches, 38 yards. Obviously, we already know about his big play potential. He's quick, and like I talked about last week with Berrios, and Berrios was one of the other guys that caught a ball, but it was only 1 catch for 3 yards. They need someone to step up. I know they got Decker, Hogan, but like I said, Edelman suspended for the first 4 games.
Matthew's gone.
Yeah.
Malcolm Mitchell gone, so.
They're still looking for that guy that's going to step up, make the team, and be able to contribute. I think Patterson could be that guy. He had some flashes in Oakland, so I still trust that he has talent there. So I'm going to look for him to maybe break a big one. I'm not going to say he's one of my core guys I'm using this week or anything like that, but I do think that he should have a decent game here. He should get a lot of looks, a lot of playing time, because he needs to show that he can make the team and show that he can maybe be their 3rd receiver for those first 4 weeks. So yeah, I think Patterson would be an interesting guy to look at if you're looking to go for big play potential, if you decide to play a big tournament or something like that. Maybe not cash game viable, but I still think he should get his targets here, should see a decent amount of the field.
Yeah, and you do have to be a little cautious. He is questionable this week.
Oh, I didn't mean to mention
that. And
that.
he was limited at practice Monday. But, again, follow us on Twitter, or just look on your own Twitter. We just don't want to be making these picks and then they get hurt. And you're like, what happened? You guys suggest them. So just always be ready for that. And, yeah, so watch out for him.
Yeah. And then just one more receiver here. I'm going to go Bryce Treggs on the Eagles. So Andrew apparently doesn't like him. That's fine.
No, it's okay.
Just looking at the Eagles, they know what they have. They know who they are. They don't need to play their guys extensively here. Just a couple drives to get their legs under them. So, I'm not envisioning we're going to see a lot of their starters for very long. And so it's going to be a very similar game plan to last week, where Treggs caught 3 balls, 39 yards. He's a guy that we've actually he's popped up a few times, so we know he has some talent here. Should see the field a decent amount. He was their leading catcher. I don't know how to say that. Leading ball catcher last week.
Yeah.
I guess, besides Goddard.
Yeah, and Gibson. But they're all great options, honestly. Especially with the Eagles' receiver injuries. And we talked about Kamar Aiken last week, but we didn't really see much out of him.
Yeah.
So
he's on here, but he didn't catch a ball. I think he had a couple targets his way, but nothing out of him really. So Treggs, I think, is going to be one of those guys, just like kind of filling up the time for the Eagles. But garbage time is extremely important in fantasy terms. So whether it's garbage time or the first drive of the first quarter, it doesn't really matter as long as you get the points eventually. So I think Treggs will be an interesting guy.
Yeah.
Again, not necessarily one of my core guys, but someone I might mix in a little bit.
Yeah, he should get the looks that he needs to have a decent week. And he has the potential of getting a big touchdown. So we can see that out of him. And then moving on to tight ends, as he talked about, is Dallas Goedert. So he was the guy who had a really good first preseason game.
Mm-hmm.
He did get hurt this week, but he apparently returned to practice Monday. They thought it was going to be a more severe arm injury, and I don't think it was that bad. So he caught 4 catches for 66 yards, so he definitely got those looks. And he's probably going to be the guy who steps up to be at number 2 tight end for them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we saw last year that Trey Burton behind Zach Ertz had really good volume, and he had a lot of success. And then he went on to eventually, who's he on now? The Bears, right? Yeah, I think so. And he's now going to be their number 1. Yeah. Whatever team he's on, I'm pretty sure it's the Bears. So Goddard wants to be that guy. They know that they need that guy because that brings huge success to their team. He was a big reason for some of their production last year, Trey Burton. So they need that number 2 tight end. They want to see a lot out of Goddard. So if he's healthy this week, he's going to definitely be a big tight end to target. I think he's going to have high ownership, but that could help us in a certain way because if we pick him, he's 60% owned, and he were to not do well, then it doesn't hurt us as much as if he's 10% owned. Mm-hmm. So we haven't been as successful at tight ends, definitely. So looking for a guy who's almost locked in to get us 5+ points is huge.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm probably a little gun shy here to pick a tight end. They're scaring me now. Everyone I look at is it's like a ghost of.
I promise we're good in the regular season.
Hey, look, tight ends are usually my bread and butter. There's just too many of them. I don't know what's going on. If you're twisting my arm here, and I'm gonna play Godert, but in a scenario where you're gonna tell me, look, I'm hedging already. I'm obviously terrified. It's fine.
Let's say Godert's hurt.
Let's say Godert's hurt. Look at Jeremy Sprinkle.
Oh,
God. Look.
I've never heard the name in my life.
Look, Jeremy Sprinkle, all right, Redskins tight end. Man, y'all got me all terrified here to put my name on the line. It's fine. I ain't mad about it. All right, I'm a little mad about it. It's like Jimmy Graham all over again. Look, all we talk about is bad tight ends. I swear we're good at it. I digress. Jeremy Sprinkle and the Redskins. Listed as their third one right now. You're not going to see Jordan Reed. Vernon Davis is like 75 years old. You're not going to see much of him. He might get a little bit to get his legs under him. Now we're looking at Jeremy Sprinkle. All right, Jordan Reed is always hurt. Vernon Davis is still a decent player, but they kind of need to see somebody else. Last week he had 2 catches.
Oh.
They only went for 6 yards. Don't get me wrong. But I think he's going to get a little bit more action this week. They need to see what he's got. He's in a little bit of a battle to make the team with a couple other tight ends. So I'm looking at Sprinkle to kind of step up here. Hey, if he falls in the end zone, I'll go crazy. Hope Godert's healthy. If you want to sprinkle in some Sprinkle, did that on the spot. Go for it. Hey, maybe this is the week. I promise we're not idiots. At this, anyway. So, yeah, Jeremy Sprinkle, my guy. Lock it in.
I don't hate it as much as when you started that conversation. I might play him. I might. You convinced me. He sounds like a viable option. Because they need that guy. They really do.
For those of you that don't we don't talk about our plays beforehand, or at least a majority of them. So that's kind of why you hear our reactions. They're raw reactions when we suggest somebody, and it's kind of a good thing because that way we kind of check each other, and we can have honest conversations about them instead of just agreeing wholeheartedly the whole time. So when you hear Andrew laugh at me, it's probably because he just thinks I'm stupid.
And he picked a guy named Sprinkle.
And I picked a guy named Jeremy Sprinkle, but that's fine. It's just honest reactions, and then that way, we have our own research base, and then, so like he said, I kind of talked him into it a little bit. That's because he didn't necessarily go deep into him. So you're hearing raw reactions, and then it kind of helps us check each other. It's like a check and balance system, so that way, when we go to make our official lineups, we kind of have each other's plays in mind, have what each other talked about, have all the research combined, and then that way, hopefully we're making optimal lineups.
Yeah. It's almost like we're doing double the research,
right.
Like individually, and then come together and optimizing plays.
Exactly.
So, one last thing to talk about, defenses this week. Again, not a whole lot I can do. You really can't pick out a defense, but if I were to pick one, I would like to go against the guys who I'm not playing.
Right.
So, me personally, I think that I'm going to be playing the least amount of Redskins. Call me crazy, Jeremy Sprinkle. Sorry,
Jeremy
you might not make the cut. So that would lead me playing the Jets, or like if I wasn't playing a bunch of Jets, if I was playing no Jets, I'd probably play the Redskins. So that's just the way that I go about it, and it really just depends on who scores. Like, what defense scores, you can't really predict it. There's not a whole lot you can do. So, you can go against the worst quarterbacks, but they're probably going to do well anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I probably will stay away from the Redskins. They gave up 26 to the Pats last week. And that obviously was no Brady, none of their starters. Hold on, I'm trying to get their official points. Yeah, they got 3 last week. So, I'm not saying that's going to happen again. I know it's still the Patriots and it's a good system. But I might be looking at the Packers this week. They played the Titans last week. They gave up 17 points. They only got 4 themselves, but I just think the Steelers, I don't really trust Landry Jones that much.
Yeah.
So that's just the way I'm looking at it.
And like in that scenario, if you were to play Mason Rudolph, don't play them.
Right.
You know,
you're not going to be one of rooting against. It's all like we said, it's kind of just about who's going to score the touchdowns, who's going to get the sacks, and we might be able to find some value if the day goes on tonight and into tomorrow. If we see the way the offensive line rotations are going to work out.
Yeah, because like last week during the primetime slate, I know we didn't tweet about it or anything, I don't think, but we went the Broncos defense for who were they playing again?
Vikes.
Yeah, the Vikings.
Yeah.
And the Vikings apparently their rotation, their offensive line was absolute garbage, and we know the Broncos love to pass rush, and they want to have those extra guys who can do it behind Von Miller and Chubb. So we saw a lot of the Broncos defense and getting sacks and a lot of pressure, and that definitely helped rack up some points. They eventually got a fumble recovery, and they ended up getting, I think, 10 points, even though they let up a bunch. So those sack points and picks and everything like that, the pressure, it can rack up points, even if
they gave up 42, and yet they still ended up with 7 fantasy points.
Yeah, 7.
Yeah.
Because of my story, yeah.
I mean, look, if they give up 42 points, you would expect them to be a negative defense. So if we find something like that later, closer to the lock, we're definitely going to tweet out about it. So, yeah, defense is kind of a crapshoot. But like we said, if you're picking an offensive guy, it usually means that that's going to be because you're going to expect them to do well and do that against that defense. So, go with the defense, you feel right about. Maybe you're going to the game. Maybe you're going to be watching the game. Whatever it is,
Yeah.
It's a crapshoot. Look at their returners, or look at their big pass rushers.
I love to play defense when I go to the game. Last week I played the Ravens defense, and that was awesome.
Yeah. So, like I said, I'll probably be using the Packers unless something changes. So, yeah.
I think that's all we have. So, again, follow us for the picks. We might be tweeting out some stuff closer to lock time.
Yeah, and if Draftkings and Fanduel adds the Friday and Saturday slates, we'll be tweeting out about that too.
We will be.
It's just a weird preseason week.
Yeah, because Saturday slate's actually bigger.
Yeah, I don't know why they're not covering it at the moment.
No. But we'll talk a lot about that. So just stay tuned with us. And I think that's all we have.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So I'm Andrew.
And I'm Ben.
Thank you.
If you found this podcast helpful at all, make sure to let us know. Send us your winning lineups. If you guys liked us, make sure to follow us on Twitter at DraftThunderDFS. Thank you guys for tuning in. See you next week.